You're listening to Nothing's Off the Table, the podcast where no subject is too taboo to discuss. Now, please welcome your hosts, Andy Barker and Udell Bree.
What's up?
I was debating whether or not I should mute because I'm always
Well,
mute when we come in.
I'll be perfectly honest. I'm surprised that you weren't. In fact, pleasantly surprised.
Well, did you see? I was still sharing the screen all the way up until we started.
Oh, no, I didn't see that. That's funny. Well, we got a great show tonight, man. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to it.
We do.
But before we bring our guest in,
Wasting no time.
we're not fucking around tonight.
No, we do need to get to our guest. We have a good guest. All right, folks. We paid for it, so you don't have to. I listened to the news this week, and just to cover a couple of things. Well, I'll tell you what. First, I want to say before I get into this stuff, all day today they were talking about the Doge team locking in, and now the biggest beef is the 19-year-old who had the online name of Big Balls. So everyone's upset now that this 19-year-old Big Balls has been running through everything and uncovering all the fraud, waste, and abuse. And I think I heard it best said, it's so funny how they're complaining about an unelected bureaucrat going through all the unelected bureaucrats stuff.
Right.
The state that they created. All right. Anyway, Glenn Beck, Hour 2 Monday outlined the whole USAID versus Doge, went through line by line. Apparently, the director and deputy director have been placed on leave due to denying access to financial records to Doge. It's an aid organization. They're claiming the info. They're panicked over us looking behind the curtain. USAID's been a black ops front for decades that a lot of people have known about. And now it's getting a lot of the sunlight with a lot of that money coming out. I'm sure you've seen over the last week. The President Daily Brief with Mike Baker on 4 February morning edition. If you remember, he was out traveling, trying to recreate the Lawrence of Arabia crossing of the desert. He's been doing the show last couple of days. He reported in. He had to. Right. He got hurt. He had to dip out. He said, but those guys are still going. So he's encouraging people to go check that out, raising awareness for British Special Forces. He's been, like I said, recreating that Lawrence of Arabia crossing of the desert. Right. But for February morning edition, they discussed the internal ICE memos about cartels authorizing drone attacks against agents and military, as well as authorizing assassinations on U.S. soil. So he covered that day about how the border is going to heat up and they are expecting a lot of contact. They've already exchanged gunfire once this week. If you look on the news there, Steve Day Show, Hour 1, Dr. Cassidy didn't want to vote for RFK. He's quoted as saying, upon wise counsel from J.D. Vance. Did you hear about this?
No.
Yeah, so Cassidy didn't want to advance him out of committee, but upon wise counsel, he's quoted as saying in one of the articles, upon wise counsel from J.D. Vance, he changed his vote. And what they were reporting the council was, you vote for Trump's nominee or your ass is going to be primary. Do you understand? we're gonna smoke you next year. And so upon wise counsel, he changed his vote. So they went through that and how that went down on Hour 1. And then Chewing the Fat with Jeff Fisher talked about Alpha Genesis, the primate lab monkey escape from a few months ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Monkeys escaped in South Carolina from the primate. Anyway, apparently PETA has demanded a follow-up since there's been no articles regarding the Alpha Genesis rounding up of the monkeys. And so the CEO of Alpha Genesis, Greg Westergaard, put out a response on the Facebook page for Alpha Genesis, their official Facebook page. So, right now, not claiming to be hacked or anything, but put out a response. He thanked the people basically for their support and ended the quote with, "And PETA, you can go fuck yourself." So, good for him.
Right?
And that, everyone, is a wrap of the news this week. Check it out for more details.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited to introduce our guest.
Absolutely.
Our guest this evening is a 27-year veteran of the United States Navy, and almost all of that time, barring training and whatnot, has been as a reconnaissance corpsman, plank owner of the SARCs, Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsman, and I've got a special intro for him. See if it plays. It might not play. Oh, well, wait a second. Oh, I
Well,
failed
I will say
again.
I had an opportunity to train under this gentleman for
I
2 weeks
failed
back.
again.
That's all right.
Jesus. I'm just going to tell you, Mike, not many people will get it, but it was the theme song to Baywatch.
That would have been good. That would put a smile on my face.
We'll leave that as an inside.
Well, yep.
Yeah.
History
Anyway,
way past in the back.
way back. But ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Michael Groman. Michael, is an extreme honor and pleasure to have you on the show tonight. We go way back.
Way back.
Way back. So I know your story.
Yeah.
But I invited you here for you to tell it because, like we talked about earlier before the show, there's a lot of folks that are very interested in your story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure how much detail you want me to put in it. So I'll just kind of give the Reader's Digest version, and then we can kind of dive in from there. Like most folks from small towns in Texas with 2 working parents that, my mom was a butcher. My dad was a maintenance guy. College wasn't anywhere near something that we were going to do. So 18, you were out of the house or, had a job and were paying bills. So it was either Jiffy Lube. And I say that jokingly, but nothing wrong with working at Jiffy Lube. But those were kind of my choices. And I joined the military and ended up being a corpsman. I figured if I was going to learn something, maybe some medicine skills would be beneficial. And I got myself stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, right out of Corps School. In fact, I believe Ann Demas and I met in Corps School. I think you were the class ahead of me, right?
I think so.
Yeah, you were like an upperclassman or something.
No, I think you were a class ahead of me.
Was that how it was?
I think so.
You were around there somewhere. So
were you slumming?
Because I was dumb and I got rolled back a class.
Yeah, probably something. That's probably what it was. I wasn't going to throw you under the bus yet, but I figured that was a good way to open the show.
I'm an open book, man.
Yeah, no, I've been married. I've been retired almost a decade now, so I don't really give a shit about any of it. So, so I wound up going to Camp Lejeune, and I actually got myself in trouble within about the first 2 weeks with the CMC. Apparently, you don't just put all the phones on hold when you're sitting at the front desk in internal medicine. Apparently, that's a no-no. So I got in a little bit of trouble. Had to go see. I was actually going to XOI, and so this will make you laugh. And I'm not going to say my buddy's name, but if he ever watches this, you'll know who it was. We decided to just put E3 rank on our uniforms because back then it was automatic. So you were broke. You didn't have any money. So we just, instead of going from E2 to E3, let's just put E3 and then we can save ourselves some coin. So I'm in there talking to I had to go see the XO, and the command master chief's in there, and the XO keeps looking down at his paperwork, looking up at me, and he's like, okay, hold on. Are you an HA or an HN? And I was like, oh, I'm an HN or HA, sir. He's like, why do you have HN on your uniform? So I told him, trying to save some coin, like, we're poor. And he just looked at the master chief, and to this day I respect it. He looked at the master chief, said, "This one's all yours." So the master chief introduced me to an individual out at 2nd Recon Battalion. I will say his name because he was one of our legends in our community, Chief Bob Johnson at the time. And Bob put me on the right path. So he introduced me to the reconnaissance corpsman community as it was at the time in the early 90s. And I wound up getting my orders out of Camp Lejeune. I tried to stay in Lejeune. Military intelligence and reasoning is they sent me all the way to Hawaii, which was great because I got to hang out with my buddy Ann Demas again for a couple of years and be roommates and all that good stuff. But back then, you competed with the Marines for seats. I had to do a pump first. That was a requirement to apply to recon as a young corpsman. So I wound up making a float with 1-3. Got back from that, took the NDOC, passed it, and then competed from that point forward over the next couple of years to knock out all the schools required for be a recon corpsman. And back then, the early 90s, we didn't actually have an NEC. We were actually given the SEAL corpsman NEC coming out of SOT school. So, which used, understanding the whole manpower system later in my career must have been devastating for them, because on paper they've got 130% manning in their SEAL corpsmen, and 80 of those guys are actually recon corpsmen. So I was an 8492, I think was the old NEC, special operations technician, and in the early, I think 92, 90, 93 or 94, can't remember, they created our own NEC, and that's when we broke off and became Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsmen. And those of us that had all the qualifications already were brought into the 8427 community as we knew it up until I retired. And then moving forward, they had this amazing thing called the pipeline, and young corpsmen and actually sailors across the fleet, to include Marines, could apply as fleet returnees to go through the pipeline to attain the NEC and work as reconnaissance corpsmen for their career. So some bad luck ended me up in a great place that turned out to be good luck. So from there, I was actually thinking about this today, Andy. I have served, or not served is probably not the right word. I'm gonna get myself in trouble. I have worked with every premier organization that the United States Special Operations Command has to offer. So 2 of them I was actually stationed at. The rest of them I worked either on deployment, during workup, through training, through collaboration. So I think as a SARC, I've got an exposure to stuff that no one else, a lot of times in the hospital corps, get to expose themselves to. We've still got large group of individuals still doing that in some really premier commands. And I won't mention command names tonight, because that's the one thing I'll leave out of the conversation. But everything else, man, it's an open book. It's wide open.
You can use your imagination.
Yeah.
And go wild with it. So, God, man, Lou, I think it'd probably be better if you ask questions tonight, because I'm going to lead us down roads we probably don't want to go down. Funny stories, great stories, but not for everybody.
I hear. I can tell you this, Mike. I tell people I had the fortunate opportunity to train under you for 2 weeks back in 2007. You were all over the place. I mean, so your head popped in, here and there with a nugget, running around all over. But I had the opportunity to attend the SOCM conference down in Tampa, I believe it was a long time ago. You presented on a rescue.
Yes.
Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, actually.
That was freaking amazing.
Yeah. So that would have been in 2011 when I presented at SOCM, or at what do they call it these days? SOMA.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah, SOMA. That's right. That's right. Because SOCM's the course, right? SOMA. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And it's funny, right? Because I just connected with my team leader from that mission a couple weeks ago. We hadn't talked in probably since I retired. So it's kind of nice to connect. So I've been thinking about that story recently. We were in the mountains of Afghanistan. We were a small team. We had a team leader, JTAC, a couple of operators, and then we had a small crew of Rangers just hungry to fucking smoke some shit, and snipers and a little bit of security element. And the Army battle commander wanted to go in and just kind of squish this town, and we were requested to provide some overhead fire support. Believe it or not, the Army units didn't have the authorization to authorize or release ammunition or munitions from aircraft. They had to get it from whoever. We did. We had direct release authority with our JTACs, so they wanted that support up in the hills. So I thought it was gonna be a cool mission. I think it was gonna be our last mission. So we were kind of on the edge of, we're getting ready to go home, but this sounds like it's just gonna be one of those things. Insert, make movement, set an ORP. Sun will come up, we'll smoke some shit, and then we'll extract, and the Army can go in there and spank everyone's ass. So we insert, and I'll throw a plug in for our Night Stalkers. Those guys are the most amazing fucking pilots on the planet. And I've got all the respect and love in the world for those guys and my brother medics over there. But on this particular mission, we got, and nothing against Army conventional aircraft, but these guys were just a little bit of a different thought process and mentality. So they inserted us 2 ridge lines off of our designated site. And I'm telling you what, the fucking mountains of Afghanistan in the middle of the night with a small team with an assload of shit was not a fun movement, but we made it. We pushed through. But I'll tell you what was really kind of cool, and I think the reason some of the tactics and decisions that were made on once we made contact, as we were making movement, we discovered these dugout rock fighting positions where the enemy had really just dug out the mountain. And they had built these, fighting positions in these beds of rocks. And the only thing you could see was, a small opening where they could stick their weapons through. So kind of walking through that was a little bit eerie. Like, holy shit, had we not seen this could have been a bad experience. We got into our position, and I'll tell you what, man, it was a gorgeous morning. Afghanistan's a beautiful country. And we waited, and I think it was around 9 o'clock and all hell broke loose. All the women and children were moving out of the city. We knew someone knows something, right?
Right.
And man, it broke loose, and we were heavily engaged. The conventional forces got stuck up the road where they were supposed to make a turn to come into the village, so that they were a couple clicks out. So it was just kind of our small team. I think as soon as we called troops in contact, we got every air asset on the planet.
Uh-oh. Did we lose them?
Yep.
Oh, man. It's like a cliffhanger, man.
Right at the good part.
Right? Is this where we're supposed to insert the commercial that our sponsors told us to?
And then
I
they
have to
called
give it,
me.
right?
No,
I have to get with HR on that one.
yeah.
Anyway, damn it, man. I was on the edge of my seat.
That's why I asked him to tell that I was there at the conference,
Let me text him real quick. He might not even know he's froze.
That's hilarious if he's still talking. There he is.
Right?
He's back.
Oh, okay. Just getting ready to text you. I don't know what happened, dude. Must be
Yeah, I just was like,
your internet sucks. And he's gone again. Be patient, folks. He'll be back. So anyway, there I was, knee deep in it. Never mind. That's the wrong story. We don't need to tell that one on here.
Right. Again?
Right? I know, man. So, God, man, I'm
What a legend, man.
chomping at the bit. I want to hear the end of it.
But I will tell you this. While we wait for him to get back, and Andy, if you want to send him a text, I'll tell you real quick. What he says about the desert. I remember we saw a cave. We stopped for lunch. Noticed a cave overlooking us, right? Where how you run, you circle up and get ready. You know what I mean? So we circled up, went off grid, off map, circled up, started. Noticed the cave. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna go check that cave out." Said, "Sure, man." Hours go by. They come back. What happened? They're like, "Dude, do you know how far away that thing? Like, it was an optical illusion.
Oh.
It went down and came back up. That cave was nowhere near."
Oh, wow.
So they were like, it was like 3 hours just to get there. And then they looked around. He said, we walked for so long. We were like, well, now we're definitely going. Right? Now we're not turning around.
Right?
You know what I mean? And then you get there and you're like, oh, crap. Now we got to go back. Well, let me sit down for a little bit and relax. And then you start going back. He said, but, so when he says he's got to cross 2 ridge lines, man, you can imagine that is not close.
No.
Not
even a little.
And then talking about those dugout positions, right? Remember, he's crossing at night. So they're seeing that at night, these dugout holes, these positions. And, just so you know, night vision only works with a certain percentage of starlight.
Right.
It doesn't work in complete darkness. So
There
as
he
he's
is.
talking about these things, I'm just trying to add some color while you were gone, my friend. But you left off as you were thanking me for rescuing everyone.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, I have no idea what the fuck happened. It just all of a sudden said my connection was lost.
Weird.
Maybe Andy cut me off.
Right. No. Wait.
Oops.
All right. So
Fat
anyway,
fingers again.
Yeah.
where was I? Where did I leave off?
You had just found the dugouts.
Oh
the
yeah.
rocks.
So interesting, right? We found these dugouts. And I think had we not found those at night, it probably have been, a little probably a little bloodier during the day, not understanding kind of that stuff was built in back there, especially calling in, fire support. So we made movement. We got to our position. Beautiful, mountains of Afghanistan. It's a beautiful country. And I don't joke when I say that. It is absolutely a beautiful country. And we got set up in our OP, and we noticed probably around 8:30, 8:45 in the morning, all the women and children started to leave the village. We realized, hey, somebody is already onto this. Probably around 9 o'clock, all hell broke loose. We started taking fire from just about every direction, across the ridge line, across the city, from the city itself, egress and ingress up to the city, trucks coming up, with, military age males in them. And man, they had it down to a technique. So they would all jump in the truck with no weapons, drive down the road, and they would stop the truck. They would all jump out, run in a bush, obviously grab weapons, shoot at you for a couple minutes, drop the weapons, jump out of the bush, jump back in the truck. So you couldn't, PID weapons with them. So the Kai was trying to, figure it out like, hey man, we don't see weapons. I can't just shoot somebody that's unarmed. So we were like, hey, watch them for a minute and you'll see what we're talking about so that you can PID them. But man, it was chaos. And the conventional force had gotten hung up at the intersection coming off of the river into the village, up into the valley. So we weren't sure how long they were going to be delayed. And we took our first casualty, which was one of our rangers. And it was weird because I was sitting on the rocks and he was kind of standing in front of me talking to me. And all of a sudden he just fell. And I can, to this day, I can see him like trying to grab him and he just falls like 300 feet down this mountain. And so I try to make movement, and where we're at is kind of a little alcove. So you move out of it, you've got superior fire positions shooting at us. So he actually is down there, and I'm trying to yell at him, and he actually gives us a thumbs up, right? So I'm like, fuck, okay. So I'm trying to yell at him, JTAC's on, trying to get, rescue in. And again, we're, and obviously I'm condensing the timeline here, but, there's minutes and going on here. And then I hear, hey, your brain sometimes it's, you're shooting, things are going on. And I hear our call or, brevity for one of, someone's down again, right? And it took a second for it to snap. And I was like, oh shit. So I kind of jumped up and I run over, and it's the Ranger RTO. And this young kid, man, he's probably, 19 years old, young kid. And he had taken a round through his chest, and he was out taking a piss, right? He got to go take a piss. So he took a round just at his chest. It went through his chest, came out his tricep, and came out the back of his arm. So he's freaking out. So I'm laying there. I start treating him, getting him all set. And then as I'm laying there, I start taking rounds around me. Pop, pop, pop. And I'm like, holy fuck. Glad the guy's not a good shot. So I figured probably time to move. So I grabbed this kid. We kind of roll over into this rock bed. And as we kind of fall into it, I took a round. It's a ricochet, but I say round because it's my story, right? It was over 2 decades ago now, but I took a ricochet in the front of my leg, and that's my, like, oh shit, like I need to kind of figure out what's going on. So I get this kid bandaged. At the same time, we're finally getting information that they've got a helicopter coming in for a hoist rescue for the individual that had fallen. So he's been actively communicating with us, right, the whole time. Not necessarily, he wasn't able to get up, but he was actually hand and arm signals. He had lost his radio. His vest had completely fallen off when he fell. And so, like, hey, Mike, this helicopter's coming in. So I kind of moved back around the front of this rock cropping where I could see. And I'll tell you what, another, again, plug for our brothers over in the PJs and those Air Force fucking pilots. These guys came in and they were hovering like right in front of me, right? So This guy did a 300-foot hoist, at least, at a minimum. And I know this because we did a detailed terrain study, and I know what all the altitudes, I know where we were at and all the distances. So it was at least a 300-foot hoist. And I remember watching the PJ going down, and I was like, this fucking dude, this guy's got some fucking nuts, man. Like, there's people shooting everywhere. So they go down, PJ gets off, the helicopter doesn't fucking move. Like, we're not leaving our dude on the ground. I can see him disconnect. He fucking hooks this guy up, puts him in a hoist. They get him and they're gone. And I'm like, thank God. So now I got this other kid. And by this point, the whole valley is just fucking chaos. And I remember our Ranger snipers, like, we're out of fucking ammo. These kids, like, were just smoking anything that fucking moved that was a hostile target. And you could just look down in the valley floor, and there was fucking bodies everywhere. So, and these kids are just up there fucking smoking it. So I've got this other guy. So we call in for a medevac, and there's zero assets available. Like, there's, casualties, U.S. casualties, partner forces all over. And I'm like, well, fuck, how long am I going to have to sit on this guy? Cause I've got, gunshot to the chest. He's with me. He's conscious, alert, and oriented right now, but how long is that going to last? So I kind of move over to him to get a little bit of an assessment on it, reassess him just to see where he's at. And he's kind of sitting there. And, I pull my fucking needle D out, right? Just in case, because he's kind of just sloped over. And he looks over at me and he's like, fucking doc, I know I got mechanism of injury, but I don't have shortness of breath. And I was like, motherfucker. Somebody taught this kid right. Like,
right?
I don't know who taught him TCCC, but this motherfucker was like, you're not sticking that shit in my chest. So I gave him a little bit of lollipop to suck on so he could relax a little bit. And my JTAC, so I switch over to the med channel, and just all of a sudden static breaks, and it's not that there's anything wrong with this, but fuck, female pilot. She's like, hey, I got room for one. And I was like, and she's like, I'm coming in, I'm heavy, but we can fit him, have him ready to move. And I'm like, holy fuck, rock and roll. So this pilot comes over, Black Hawk, and as she's coming in on approach, she's like, there's no fucking way I'm going to land. There's nowhere for me to land. She's under fire. We're under fire. So she hovers this fucking helicopter. And I'm telling you, if it was any closer, she would have been cutting rock with them rotors. And we passed this patient up, and she fucking, as soon as his feet cleared that floor of the aircraft, she was gone. Shortly after that, we continued to stay engaged, and finally one of these trucks fucked up, man. They actually kept some weapon systems with them. And, we talked about people taking selfies and videos. And I probably didn't share this at Soma, but I'll never forget it. This guy they're like, we got PID'd hostile intent, white truck moving south. And I was like, and every fucking body knew exactly what that meant. So all these Rangers stand up, and they got their cameras and their fucking shit out, and they're filming. And this guy comes down the fucking street at like 50 feet and puts a fucking laser guided missile through the front windshield of that truck. And I was like, that was fucking beautiful. So, but they all filmed it, right? Of course. That was a good thing. So I think we fought for about another 5-6 hours. Luckily, we didn't take any more casualties. We were running out of ammo. We'd actually had several ammo drops. Helicopters would just fly by, drop a bunch of ammo out to us. Running out of chow, running out of water. We'd only planned to be there for a couple hours in the morning, so we'd already overstayed our planned mission. So we got some extract. We extracted. This. I'll share this one. This is pretty fucking funny. I wouldn't have admitted it at the time, but. So the helicopter comes in to extract us, and again, they couldn't land, so we had to climb up the side of the helicopter. To this day, I swear to God, I handed my weapon to my buddy, and I'm like, hey, man, just pass it up to me. So I jump on the fucking wheel. I jump up in the fucking Black Hawk. I help my buddies get in, and I turn to fucking get my weapon from my partner.
Oh, no.
What? And I was like, fuck. And I look out, my fucking weapon is laying on the ground. So I'm like, stop.
That's the worst fucking feeling ever.
Jump out, get my weapon, jump back in. Fucking was, yeah. The pilot's looking at me like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Rookie, right?
Yeah, fucking rookie. And I'm like, motherfucker. So we fly back to our base, and we had a surgical support team there. So obviously that's where all of our casualties went. So I walked in, I wanted to check on the two folks I evac'd. Turns out the ranger that had fallen had actually taken a round across his helmet that had knocked him back, creating him to fall. So we didn't know that at the time. So that was reported by him once he was treated. He was good to go. They said he had removed a lot of his scalp. He'd kind of been like scalped a little bit. So we're going to have to sew all that back on. But for the most part, for the distance he fell, he was actually fairly well and okay. I haven't run into him since. I was always hoping I was going to run into him somewhere. And then the radio operator, I talked to the surgical team about them. And they're like, yeah, he's good. The only thing that this kid was worried about was if he was going to be able to play GarageBand, because he was a drummer, and he was worried that his fucking tricep was gone, and he wasn't going to be able to drum. So I thought, well, that's a pretty good sign.
Sure.
So as I was walking out of the FST, I saw this helicopter sitting on the flight line. It was actually the Air Force that had come in and hoisted that guy. So I go walking over there, and the PJ's laying in the back of it, just taking a nap. I'm like, hey man, did you guys do a hoist out of the mountain today? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, hey man, I was the medic on the ground, just wanted to, that was some badass shit. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Their aircraft had been hit so many times that they grounded it. So they were waiting to get a fucking ride back to where they needed to go. So they were just kind of hanging out. The crew was down getting chow. The medic's like, I'm just going to fucking take a nap. So yeah, all in all, good day. I think some good work was done by the U.S. Army. But yeah, I told that story at Soma.
Yes, you did.
What about a shout out to the crew chiefs, man? Guiding those pilots in like that.
Yeah. Dude, I'll tell you what. We got some folks coming out to the hunt you're coming to in April, Andy, and we've got our brethren from the 160th and our crews coming out. And yeah, those guys are fearless a lot of times. Into the heart of battle, and their focus isn't a weapon system. It's making sure that aircraft can get to where it needs to get so that idiots like myself can get out of there or get in there or whatever the fact is. So sometimes I think a lot of those great Americans and warriors are overlooked, and I just definitely don't want to minimalize their contribution at all.
Hell yeah. Well, there's a reason why you guys are called the silent professionals, Yeah, we don't need all of that out there for the enemy to get a hold of.
Yeah,
stores are cool.
They are cool.
Hey, Mike, I have a question for you. You touched on I think an excellent point that I talk to people about when we talk about the military and young guys today about how there's no stupid grunt anymore, right? I mean, he's operating radio. I mean, he's got all kinds of stuff going on in his kit. And one of the comments you made when you told your story was, I knew the altitudes. I had done all the mission planning. Can you talk a little bit about, some of the mission? So, some of what goes into mission planning, like some of the things, you have to do in addition to, being strong and fast,
Yeah. I mean, it's all about strategy, right? So missions come down the pipe. We don't typically select them. Obviously there's stuff that we would prefer to do. So mission can be, many different facets of our areas of expertise. But once a mission comes down, especially when you're working in a small team, everybody's got multiple duties. So obviously as a medic or corpsman, I say medic a lot of times because a lot of people don't know corpsman.
Sure.
But as a corpsman, I mean, my first job is to make sure I've got everything that I need for my primary role, which is, medicine, and get my team in, out, for whatever situation that we're in. But then after that, each team member has, secondary responsibilities. And I always help with the route planning and the predetermined call for fire locations. So we would do detailed map studies on the area that we're going into and look at the terrain and determine, potential, what might be a threat, what might not be a threat, what looks like a good area that we can, have a little bit of safety and, secure ourselves with minimal personnel. Because a lot of times, we're not working with, an entire platoon or, a couple platoons or a company size element. So if you've only got, 12 guys, that's a lot of ground to cover with those 12 folks when you've got all those facets. So each member of the team has to put in the time and effort. And, I'm not a communicator, but I have to make sure that I know how to tune all the radios. I need to know all the radio channels. If something goes bad with our radio operator, someone's gonna have to step up. Kind of same thing for the JTAC. You understand what the JTAC does at a very high level, in the event that something happens with the JTAC and we've got to jump on the radio. Like I mentioned earlier, I rolled to the medical channel, which was an open net that we always communicated with medevac on, because we realized that putting the JTAC only on there, sometimes the pilot wants more information from us. 9 lines, we all talk about 9 lines, but if I had to count on one hand how many times I actually used an entire 9 line, it would probably be like this many.
Nobody believes that outside the military. They think you 9-line everything. Like, I 9-line this ballpoint pen. Like, I'm like, no.
Yeah. The pilot just wants to know where you at. And
nobody's got time for that.
Right? Like, that's all we care about. So, yeah. And that, and again, it goes back to the great pilots that we have. They know that we got more important shit going on the ground than writing a fucking report so they can fucking type it in their computer. So yeah, I mean, it just goes into that preparation. And then, it's almost weird. It's like when you step on the ground, you've seen it. Like you know where your contour lines are, where your defilade is, where the sun's coming up, where it's going down. All of those things are expected. Where the next, you're not going to walk up on a house and be like, what the fuck is a house doing here? It's, there's a house there. And that's why I was surprised when we found those fighting positions.
Right.
Because we didn't have, even 3-meter imagery didn't have enough granular detail to pick those rock fighting positions out of a rock mountain. So I think that was like, wow, that's something I didn't expect to see that. So, and it's funny when you talk about studying shit, we did a lot of, I didn't do it a lot, but every once in a while I got the pleasure of running roofs. Usually that was the operators only, because you didn't want your medic up there on the roof. But there were a few times that we were really, really thin, and my team leader was like, "Hey, we're gonna have you run a roof." And construction in Afghanistan is not, in Iraq, is not the same as the United States. If you get off of the corner of the house where the wall is, there's no support structure. And I unfortunately have found that out the fortunate way, right? Like, you put your foot through someone's ceiling and you're like, okay, I probably shouldn't have stepped there. So yeah, it all goes into that preparation and planning to make sure that we're not surprised on location, and we kind of know the battlefield as well as we can.
And I think too, the other thing, if I were to be asked, what's the difference between conventional forces and special operations, I'd say money and time. They actually have both. Every other unit doesn't have one or the other. You got the time to put the work in, and you have the money to do the training to put the work in.
You're right.
Other units would love to do it. They have the time, but they don't have the money.
Yeah.
So they're sitting on money, but they don't have the time. And I think one of the other things is you do things 1,000 times together. So when you do encounter something, it's I already know. I go this way. He goes that way. I already know.
Yeah, it's almost intuitive at a point, working with a group long enough, how everybody's going to move, how they're going to function. When they're not functioning right, that. And as a corpsman, knowing my team was extremely important. I could tell when they were not right in the head, or not right at all. So those are important things. And I think that's the one area that the military doesn't necessarily do a really great job of, is this whole rotation thing. And I'm sure it serves some purpose at, somewhere, but man, there's a lot to be said for a group of people that spend more than just, a couple of years training together, to build those bonds. But that's just my opinion.
Well, you get to know each other better in a lot of ways than your family.
You do. And that's, that can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. Unfortunately, we don't get to bring everybody home. And, seeing that family, and maybe you saw them before you left. And then, I think one of the toughest things was one of the wives, hey, Mike, make sure you bring him home. Mm-hmm. And, well, you know what, we did, but not the way that she wanted, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
So that's heavy, right? Like, those are things you have to deal with. And, and you rely on your team. It's nice when someone walks up and, after you lose, a fucking, a brother, a warrior, for one of your teammates to walk up and be like, hey man, that wasn't on you. Like, there's, you did everything you could fucking do and then some. So yeah, it's, so I think without that, there's that, there's not that connection. So maybe people just don't give a shit. I don't know. But again, these are just my experiences and my opinions.
Well, I want to ask you kind of it may seem like a basic and a simple question, but I know it's something that a lot of these guys that we talk with will want to know. Just as an idea, how much you have your normal kit, right? Your war kit, but how much does your medical kit weigh?
It depends. It depends on the mission. It depends on how long you're going to be out. It depends on what you're experiencing and expecting. So, you move to altitude, and I'm adding altitude medicine and altitude kits, right? If I'm in, cold weather, now I'm looking at, hypothermia type prevention and treatment. If it's going to be, and here's a sad thing, Andy, I think that's a great question. So like that particular day that I spoke about, I had a fanny bag because we were only supposed to be out there for a couple hours. And I mean, right. I think back on it now, and I'm like, thank fucking God, I didn't have a multi-system trauma patient that, was much worse off, because I don't know that I would have had the kit to treat them. So we kind of planned for the mission. And some days that could be an additional 20 pounds. Others, it could be, an additional 100 pounds if we were expecting to be somewhere. Now, I'll be honest, when we rolled with those much larger bags, part of my plan was there was always what I call a drop site. And I was going to mark the bag with the IR light. And if I needed it, my entire fucking team knew where that bag was at. And
you didn't carry the portable hyperbaric chamber? No.
No, man, but I know guys, we should carry this. I'm like, you can carry it all the fuck you want, man.
But Mike, though, great question, though. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were stunned to hear from me, right? When I said, when you talk about like how many 9 lines, right? I tell people, do you know how, it's not that I wasn't in thousands of firefights, but the firefights that I was in and the times that we took, a casualty or two, the amount of IVs I started were bagel. That generates a lot of trash. It ties up a lot of stuff. It's a lot of weight. And like you said, it was at the drop site at the truck.
Yeah.
We're not doing that here. We're not playing that game here. We're going to get it. We're going to get the holes closed. And people get stunned by that. And I tried to explain, at some point in every Marine's career, there comes a point where they realize if Doc didn't start an IV, this medical care is crap. You have to train them. You have to hey, listen,
Yeah, you're right. You're right in all those counts. And your weight, ounces is pounds, pounds is pain. If you're going to be out there a prolonged period of time, again, I remember one of our surgeons from one of our trauma teams was just like, hey, Mike, remember, stable, unstable. Like, that's all you got to think about. Stable, unstable. If you got a fucking stable patient, why fuck with it? Like, don't fuck with it if it's not broken. And I'm like, fuck yes, sir. I'm Roger that. And he's a trauma surgeon. So, and I kind of carried that with me moving forward. I'm like, hey, stable, unstable. If they were stable, I maintained them until they got unstable. And then it would become a game of, all right, what does this guy really need? And, sometimes fucking water in the vein isn't exactly what a multi-system trauma patient needs. I mean, you guys know as well as I do. A lot of times that blood volume expander, short-lived. It doesn't give you any type of carrying capacity. So yeah, it's like licking the tip, right? Why even fucking do it?
Exactly.
Hold on, I'm almost there. Okay, all right.
Find a hooker to hold, right?
I meant like on a fucking lollipop, man. Like you just
yeah. That's what I was talking
dirty
about.
mind.
Yeah. How about them Bears? But man, God, I had a couple other questions, and yeah, gone.
You guys used to play games. Can you tell us about safety rope? Do they still do you still have to have your safety rope if you want to be if you're a SARC candidate?
Man, so here's what I'm sure my amazing brethren have all their shit squared the fuck away. And I haven't, I was actually honored enough just a couple of months ago to speak at one of their retirements back at one of our organizations. And, I took the time to walk around, and not a lot's changed. So I'm going to make the guess and the assumption that a lot of the heritage and the lineage that these guys grew up with, they're still doing it. And it's not hazing.
No, everybody can use safety rope.
for those assholes out there that are like, oh, that's hazing. And, it made you the man that you were. And without those life skills, you didn't mature enough to do the jobs that you needed to do. So I'm hoping they're continuing all those traditions. They're good traditions. They're important traditions, and they're purposeful traditions.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
So I want to shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
I'd like to talk about what does it take to get through the program, and I'm not talking physically.
Yeah, man. Look, it's 90% mental, right? Your body's going to tell you that it can quit, and I think each component, their training pipeline, they hold it in a particular regard. So I'm not going to poke or say ours is any tougher, easier. We have a different training pipeline, but like most of the prior reconnaissance Marines, we went to, we all had to NDOC to make, to cut our teeth to get into the unit, and that's not an easy thing to do. And your body tells you all the way through, hey, you could just fucking quit, and all this pain will go away. But it's what does your mind want to do? Is this something that you really want to do? And you're going to figure that out. And if you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it, right? That's what it comes down to. I can make you strong. I joke all the time. When I went through the pipeline, or my version of the pipeline, I was like 152 pounds. Like, people don't realize that. I'm like 240 pounds. When I retired, I think it was like 220. But when I went through training, I was 150 something pounds, soaking fucking wet. Like,
I remember that kid.
Oh yeah, man. Like, my wife sees old pictures and she's like, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, it's not about being the big, strong dude. It's about being the guy that can drive your mind to keep your body going when everything else tells it to stop. So as you get exposed to that, love good old Coronado, California, where I went to, BRC. It's fucking cold. It's wet. It's sandy. None of those things together are any type of fun. And then, you're sleep deprived. You're fucking hungry. You've probably been out there all day listening to some, fucking Marine yell at you. And it just like, why am I here? And then you look at the dude next to you and they're fucking worse than you are. You just laugh a little bit. And that weekend you're going to go to Gator Gardens and beat the shit out of some team guys and buds. And that's what we did back in the day. Fucking, and for all my old school buddies that remember that shit.
Holy shit,
Break
that brings
off
back
the chicken
memories.
on a stick.
Hey,
Damn, that brings back memories.
We did, man. We got in fights. The funny thing is, the corpsmen, both the recon corpsmen and the SEAL corpsmen, we were always like good to fucking go. Like, we were our own little fucking ionosphere. But outside of that, it was blue and gold, green and gold, and it was like, all right, who's going to throw the first punch? Usually the Marines. I love my Marine brethren, but. Yeah, man, it just comes down to how bad you want it. You're going to be put into situations to make you uncomfortable. We can't shoot at you in training. We can't stress you enough in training to determine, are you going to hit a breaking point? So that's really what the schools are designed to do is, can you operate in that environment? I mean, when you're, I remember diving into Iraq during the initial invasion. That's, if you don't have your shit wired tight, at fucking 40 feet, 35 feet of water, and shit goes sour, that's not the time to figure out that you don't like being in the fucking water. So it's all about not how strong you are, how fast you are. I've never been the fastest. In fact, I will guarantee anybody I've served in a platoon with will tell you, fucking Groman is not a fucking fast runner. But I'll tell you this, I will fucking run forever. And the sad thing is, I can ruck as fast as I can run. So when these motherfuckers put rucks on, I'm like, all right, bitch, now who's fucking crying? So,
Right.
So man, it's all about mentality. It's all about mental toughness, and knowing what you want to do. And if you have those two things, fucking the world is your oyster.
I tell you, my biggest regret is not going back through the pipeline.
I know, man. I wish you would have. I always think about that.
I let fucking other people get into my head, when I had so I always tell people I quit. I tell people I was a quitter. I didn't make it through ARS. Truth be told is I broke my foot on the run. But everybody has an excuse. I don't want to be that guy, so I just say I quit. But my biggest regret is not going back through. There's no doubt in my mind I wouldn't have made it. When Mike came out to scream me, I don't know if I ever told you this, Lou. This son of a bitch. Pick him up at the airport when he flies in. We go out, we get fucking hammered. I
Hammer.
mean, stupid.
Hammer.
Stupid. And this cocksucker's waking me up at 5. I'm like, what? We're screening, bitch. I'm like, no.
Hammered.
I was so
Nice.
hungover, man. I was throwing up in the pool. I was throwing up on the run. I was throwing up on the rug. But again, they weren't great times, but I didn't fucking. We had buds dropouts, Mike, there that were quitting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I should have went back, but you know what? I wouldn't be where I'm at now. I wouldn't have my family, and who knows? I might not even be alive. But it is a regret.
I always tell people I ended up like Jesse Ventura, like Jesse Ventura, like I ended up over at MARSOC during that one little like time frame where they were letting us go through the MCT.
Yeah.
But you had that bridge plan, if I remember, but they never ran with it.
Yeah, I know some of my folks that's long past my time that stayed there, worked on some stuff. I'm not, I don't know where they're going today. I know that the reconnaissance corpsman community is strong. I know they're still supporting MARSOC. I know they're still supporting. I know there's some. I think one of the great changes that they made that I applaud them for is there's no longer a short course versus long course.
Right.
All the guys go straight through the full 18 Delta course and come out of there, which is something we had done with, I think, I could be wrong, I have to check the books, but I think I'm the first one that actually sent someone to that, and BUmed was fucking livid. But I sent him TAD. I found out a way that we sent him TAD, we made it work, and they didn't know about it until I applied for their NEC, and the person was, I think at the time, he was either an E3 or we had just pinned on E4 for him, and they're like, you can't make this kid an IDC. He's not an E5. I'm like, cool. I'll wait till he makes E5 to give him IDC privileges, but until then, he's a full-on fucking 18 Delta. Like I give 2 fucks about what BUmed tells me what I can do on the battlefield, right? That's not, BUmed doesn't control that. So, so it's really good to see those guys cranking all the way through the course now and getting that entire qualification. Yeah. So they can focus on the road ahead of them instead of, fuck, I got to come back to brag in a couple of years.
Yeah, right. So I think I'm trying to remember. I think we went to IDC school at the same time, right?
I think so I went to IDC school at Bragg in 98 and graduated in 99.
Okay. Yeah, I went in 99. But I remember we would call each other all the time and talk about fucking, the different curriculums and what's going on and shit.
Yeah, I think we were slightly offset just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, so many stories I want to rehash, but I don't think are appropriate for this venue. But what's your advice for, let's say, a young corpsman that wants to go MARSOC?
Do it. I mean, look, nothing's stopping you, and don't listen to what your chief says that wasn't able to do it, because they're usually the ones that are the first to tell you that, I can't do that, or it's too hard. I remember, when you mentioned IDC school, I was at a particular command. We will not name that command, but I had gotten sent to shore duty, and I wasn't fucking happy there. And I put in 1306 after 1306 after 1306 to go to the long course. And every fucking time I did, the chief and admin was like, nah, it's not gonna get approved. And then finally, one of the chiefs that I have all the ultimate respect for to this day, Ralph Sanchez, who was a mentor of mine out at Camp Pendleton. He was the chief at that command at the time. And he was like, fucking don't even reprint this. I will send this motherfucker back in every single month. And I'm like, that's a fucking chief right there, right? He's going to figure it the fuck out. So Ralph's helped me send that thing in. I got my orders and I was fucking out of there. So if you want it, do it. Don't let anybody tell you no. If you don't think you meet a qualification, fucking request a waiver. Like, things are waiverable for reasons. There are some things that are kind of cut and dry. But if it's something that's an approved waiverable process, get that waiver in. We just, most of the time it just needs to be identified before you get into the pipeline. And and I will tell you this, I will say that every recon corpsman, whether we're calling them recon corpsmen today or SOIDCs, every one of those dudes across the fleet would bend over backwards to help someone get into the community. So if you're running into issues, find your local SARC, reach out to them, email me. I don't care. I'll find them. And those guys will help you do what you need to do, because we know that's taking care of our next generation is the only way that's going to survive.
That's right. Train your relief, right? Hang around. We're gonna move on in to our next segment, and then for our Veterans Helping Veterans segment this week, we're gonna let Mike talk about his organization, which is amazing. I'm still. I'll shut up. I'll let you talk about it. I'm blown away, basically. But anyway, if you guys, I'm going to put y'all in the, how do we call it in the biz, Lou? The green room, and then we'll be back. All right, folks, it's that time. That's right. Get ready for your I Ain't Buying It segment. Let's rip the Band-Aid off of this one. Gustavo Arellano from the LA Times says that waving foreign flags at protests against Trump's immigration enforcement is good trouble. Good trouble? Let's talk about what's really troubling here. First off, these aren't just immigrants we're talking about. We're talking about illegal immigrants, the ones who decided that laws don't apply to them. Arellano wants us to believe that showing up with Mexican flags in San Diego on American soil is some sort of brave stand. But let's be real. It's not about bravery. It's about flaunting a disregard for the very laws of the nation they're standing in. Now, look, I get it. Everyone wants to feel proud of their heritage. But when you're here illegally, waving another country's flag at a protest isn't about pride. It's a political statement against the country that's providing you opportunities. Opportunities, by the way, that you didn't go through the proper channels to earn. And here's the real kicker. The American public isn't buying what Arellano's selling. Polls show overwhelming support for enforcing our borders because, let's face it, unchecked illegal immigration hurts the average American. It tanks wages, spikes rent, and dilutes our job market. But do you hear Arellano bringing up these facts? No. He's too busy painting a picture where waving foreign flags somehow supercharge political power. The reality is, this isn't about political power. It's about political division. It's about creating a divide so deep that we're more focused on flag waving than on the actual issues at hand. Meanwhile, Mexico's government is cheering from the sidelines, promising support to their citizens here illegally in the U.S. Does this sound like a recipe for national unity or a recipe for chaos? And let's not forget, we're in the middle of an invasion debate. The majority of Americans, including a significant chunk of Democrats, see what's happening at the border as exactly that, an invasion. And here's Arellano downplaying the economic havoc it's wreaking on our communities, all while his own family benefits from the very system he defends. So, Gustavo, while you're out there calling this good trouble, remember there's nothing good about undermining the rule of law, about ignoring the economic strain on Americans, or about promoting division under the guise of courage. No, Gustavo Arellano, when it comes to your take on illegal aliens proudly waving foreign flags while disregarding American laws, I ain't buying it. And there we have it, folks. Let's bring everybody on back in the room here.
I love that.
All right.
Love it. Love it.
Well, let's just move right on into it. So this week, for our Veterans Helping Veterans segment, Michael, tell us about your wonderful, fantastic organization that I am so enamored with and so thankful that you're allowing me to take part in it.
Yes, and Demas. So, Big Country Veterans down here in the great state of Texas. I have to tell you, I was introduced to this group probably 5 years ago now as a recipient of what they provide. And I'm going to tell you the way I told everybody else. I was very hesitant at first. I didn't think I needed any shit. I was good. I was actually not going to go up until like the day before. And my wife was like, you should just go. And if it's really shitty, I'll come out and pick you up. I'm like, all right, well, fuck it, I'll go. I'll tell you, man, within about a day of being there, I was like, hey, how do I come volunteer next year? Like, I want to be a part of this. So our organization, Big Country Veterans, I say ours because I feel like I'm a part of it now. I currently sit on the board of directors for Big Country Veterans, and we start our process off by selecting 16 veterans, and that's not a lot, right? So it's tough, and it's usually recommendations from what we call our veteran alumni, and we bring them out to Truscott, Texas, and the Circle Bar Ranch, and the Daniels family. The Daniels family has opened up their ranch, their home, as well as 25 other, or approximately, I don't know that 25 is the exact number, other families, ranchers in Truscott area to allow us to hunt on their property. And that gives us, I mean, I think last year we had something like 250,000 acres to hunt on. I mean, it's in God's country. And we bring these 16 folks out there, and we build a city in a very small town in Texas, starting on Thursday and it ends on Sunday. People come in from all over Texas to celebrate with us. And there's purpose behind it. I know a lot of folks are probably going to struggle with this, but so the purpose of being out there is we want to bond with each other, right? We want to give them that community, that sense of community again, that sense of brotherhood. And we do that around a helicopter hog hunt event. And I'm not a hunter. I'm not a big, to me, that's not something that ever excited me to do. So that was one of my oppositions when I went out there. And the first night we were there, one of the landowners came up and she talked about how her ranch was impacted negatively from the breeding of these hogs and what they could do to their ranches and the destruction that they caused. And at that point, I realized, you know what, we're actually helping some people here. So let's go do this tomorrow. So we did, and I'll tell you, man, that weekend was amazing, and everything's taken care of. And I'm not going to go too far in detail because Andy, I want you to experience it from the front seat without having any idea. That's part of the process. But after the weekend, we give all those veterans an option to continue to be part of Big Country Veterans, our family. It's not just a one-time touch point. We have a signal chat that we bring everybody into after that weekend. I think there's currently about 90 veterans that have been through the program on there. And then after that weekend, we open up more services to those veterans. We have a family retreat. We know that it's not just the veteran dealing with life after the military. We know that their families are dealing with it. So we have those all over the United States. We have amazing fucking sponsors that are always there in the background. And they don't want anything other than to be part of it, which I think is amazing. From that, we just started a service dog program. We've awarded 3 service dogs at this point. These are not emotional support dogs. These are actually service dogs trained by an expert trainer that actually tailors them to the veteran. And if their personality and their skills don't match, she swaps them out, and we give her full autonomy to do that. We also have what we call a rally point program, where we get veterans back together throughout the year. And it might be an aoudad hunt out in West Texas, or last year these guys went down to Florida and they hunted fucking like snakes, like boas and shit.
Nice.
And I'm so pissed off I didn't go on that event. But we're looking at doing a surfing trip this year. We're looking at because some of us don't want to go hunt and fish. But it's just to get the veterans back together. And there's several organizations here in Texas that support us with some great events. And then the last piece, we partner with Parker Performance, and Parker Performance Institute has the Invictus program, and it's a 2-week immersive program. I call it like functionality type stuff, where they put you through this kind of very detailed healthcare process, and it's all based on functionality. So they look at like your hormones and your diet and how high your arm moves. And they do amazing work there. And we've partnered with them. So we send folks out there. Dr. Will Morgan, who actually runs their program, is actually a Vietnam era SARC recon corpsman, who actually was one of the early recon corpsmen that served in the SEAL teams. So he was actually in Vietnam. And I think if I get this story wrong, don't hold it against him. I'm telling it, so I might fuck it up. But it was kind of cool to meet him at a huge gala last year because I followed his kind of life story and had never got the chance to meet him. And it's an amazing program. So those are kind of our 4 pillars we have today. And we do a couple of very large events throughout the year. We've got a huge gala coming up here in Weatherford, Texas at the end of February. And we've got a great group of partners with Horse Soldier Bourbon. And if you know Horse Soldier Bourbon's story, it makes sense on why we've partnered with the warriors of ODA 595 and the great things that they did, on horseback in Afghanistan in the early war. And those are just some folks that we've kind of, gravitated toward. And so our goal is to continue this outreach program. I think what we'd like to do, and I can't speak for the board, but I think in my mind, we see that weekend as our entry, our gate event. I think we'd like to get another one of those established so that we can bring more folks into our family throughout the year than just those 16. However, I want to say this: all of our events are open to any veteran. If people are struggling or need help, you're not precluded from reaching out to us and, hey, I need help with this. We've done some stem cell stuff for guys. We're looking at some other programs, but we're here to help all veterans, not just the ones that we've had at our event. So I don't want anybody to think that, they can't reach out. If there's something we can do for you as a veteran, we'll do it. We helped a Vietnam veteran last year get a home after his home was lost. And it was by us connecting with some of our partners in the area. And we weren't the heavy lift on that. The folks that took care of that individual were, but they reached out to us because they knew that we helped veterans. So that's Big Country Veterans. Please check out our website. We're updating it right now. And, we'd love any feedback or recommendations that anybody has.
Other than what, can you give the website address so people can?
Yeah, I should probably know that off the top of my head. It should be Big Country Veterans. I'm pulling it up right now. Just so
.org, isn't it?
It is .org. Yeah, it's bigcountryveterans.org.
There you have it, folks. Please check them out. They're doing amazing things. If you can find it in your heart to support, then please do. And as always, if you want to check out our Veterans Helping Veterans segment, you can go back and check out our videos. I don't care if you watch the whole thing. Scroll to the end. We always do it at the end. Find an organization that's near and dear to your heart and help them out, please. Michael, I'd like to thank you, man. God, I can't thank you enough for coming on. We need to get you back because I feel like an hour just isn't enough time to get it.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. I love talking to you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I love being here.
It's and I know there's going to be a bunch of little dudes walking around with woodies the rest of the night after they listen to it, but sometimes it'd be like that. Lou,
hey, and yes, Demas, I think we should do a podcast at one of our BCV events, and we'll have you out, and you can pretty us up, and we can talk together, so I can nug that bald head of yours if I want to.
Well, I think it's a fantastic idea. However, I don't think I can really do anything for the prettying up portion. But you know what? I'll bring my gear.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'd love
Lou,
it.
Sir, I will give you the last words.
I don't have anything. Just click like, comment down below, whatever you need. Like I said, we get we do get the emails. We try to reply. I have to warn you again, Marguerite, please. My wife does read the email. Can't be putting that stuff in there. All right.
Well, Marguerite, she's a spicy one, boy.
Come on. This is a public email. All right. But we do try to get back to them. All right. Anyway, thank you all. Click like, comment down below. We'll see you again next week.
See y'all. Peace.
You're listening to Nothing's Off the Table with Andy and Lou, an Admiral Media production podcast. All information at the time of recording is mostly accurate. Comment below, give 5 stars.